Hello there, Dr. Andrea Shanowski from Freedom Chiropractic and Holistic Health in the Peoria Metro Center and our YouTube channel, Health and Horsepower. This week, we are coming back with another back to school special, and I want to talk a little bit more about sports for kids as well as growing pains and what they can mean and what you can do about those at home. So, first of all, when it comes to looking at sports and physical activity, we need to make sure we understand that we want to make sure that we have loosened up our muscles and got blood flow in those joints to protect them from injury and harm when we're playing sports or doing physical activity. That means we need to make sure that our muscles are staying warm. So that may mean doing warm-up stretching or doing a warm-up program, whether you're doing like some light running or jogging or anything like that. Another thing that's really important to realize is after we are done with physical activity, if we have overworked those muscles, it's very important to make sure that you are icing those muscles afterwards and stretching really good. I also find the next day, if you're feeling stiffness, you want to do heat and stretch again. Ice is going to help to calm down any inflammation, injury in the joints, and then heat's going to help to bring blood flow in so it can heal up and we can actually loosen those joints up a bit more so we're not predisposing ourselves to injury when we go back to physical activity the next day. Another thing that's really important to realize is when it comes to joints themselves, whether you're talking about a knee or an ankle, we have alignment of our body and our biomechanics that help to make sure that we are putting weight evenly on the joint and the right muscles and the right ligaments are holding that joint stable. If we have any imbalance going on, so say we have muscles that are stronger on one side of the joint, those muscles that are stronger are going to pull the joint one way and stabilize it. And if the muscles on the other side aren't strong enough, we can actually hyperextend a joint because of muscle imbalance. When it comes to the biomechanics of the lower extremities, if your ankle is not strong, if your heel is not strong, and we've got any muscle tension or ligaments that have been pulled previously with a sprained ankle or anything like that, or if we have shoes that are worn down, or if we have shoes that are maybe too narrow for us, what can happen is your heel, as you're taking a step down, can actually tip sideways, and that'll cause the arch of your foot to rotate in. That'll cause your ankle to cave in. That'll cause your knee to cave in. That'll cause your hip to rotate and your lower back to shift forward as well. So when we have any imbalances, that can cause problems all the way up from the foot and ankle to the knee, to the hip, to the back, and that can predispose us to injury. So it's very important to make sure that if your child is involved in sports or a lot of physical activity, that their spines are getting checked regularly. I usually recommend at least once a month that they're not having pain, just to make sure that those joints are staying aligned, there's no issues or muscle tension or areas that might need a little bit more help. Now, if they are actively involved in sports and are having pain, I usually recommend making sure to bring them in to get evaluated to see what exactly is going on and what we need to do to prevent injury. We don't want to wait until an injury happens to try to counteract all that damage. We want to make sure we get ahead of it. So getting periodic monthly check-ins to make sure everything's aligned, and if it's not, aligning that with a chiropractic adjustment. But also I like to give recommendations for stretches and exercises to do if we have a joint that has been previously injured or has been a problem in previous seasons. Another thing that can be really important is making sure your child is getting the right nutrition. So when we are doing physical activity and sports, we want to make sure that we are getting plenty of protein. Protein is what our body's going to use to build our enzymes, build our energy precursors. That's also going to help to make sure we're keeping those muscles strong so the joints stay stable. Another thing too is we also want to make sure that they are getting extra vitamin C. Vitamin C is very protective for our ligaments, so that's going to help to prevent sprains, strains, injuries, tears. And then we also want to make sure we have the right amount of calcium to contract our muscles and the right amount of magnesium to relax our muscles. A lot of times we may be getting plenty of calcium in our diet, but magnesium is one that I find very frequently that is deficient. Another way you can get magnesium in addition to supplementation is also looking at food sources like mangoes, pumpkin seeds, peanut butter, spinach, and you can also do Epsom salt soaks to get some magnesium through the skin. There's also magnesium lotions and things that are available as well. I usually recommend making sure that you have a high quality multivitamin for your child, and then additionally adding some calcium, magnesium, and extra vitamin C. Typically for kiddos, I would recommend a bare minimum of about 500 to 1,000. 500 if your kid is under 50 pounds, 1,000 if they are over 50 pounds. And you want to spread that out because vitamin C, if you don't have enough water intake, will cause some intestinal cramping and some discomfort going to the bathroom. So just make sure plenty of water when you take that. Now, I mentioned growing pains already. Growing pains are not necessarily due to bone growth, but sometimes they are from ligaments and muscles pulling on the bone. And if we have a lot of pulling on a bone, that can eventually cause stress fractures and things like Osgood-Schlatter's disease when it's below the knee. It can also cause some issues with Sever's disease in the heels if we're having issues with mineral deposits and imbalances and things like that. Another thing to keep in mind is shin splints a lot of times, again, are caused typically by excess pressures of the ligaments and muscles as they're pulling away from the bone. We can actually take the coating on our bone and actually lift that off with a stress fracture, and then your body will actually start forming a stress reaction between the bone and the coating on top of it. And a lot of times shin splints can, again, turn into things like Osgood-Schlatter's because we have issues with excessive long-term chronic inflammation where those muscles and ligaments attach to the bone. I already mentioned as well that when we have issues with our feet or ankles, if we're having issues with the knee, if we're having issues with the hip or the back, it's a good idea to get that checked out. If you have a player that is doing more upper body sports, so everything from basketball, baseball, if they're having any complaints of like chest pain or muscle tension in their neck or upper shoulder or in their arm, again, we want to make sure that we're getting that evaluated, aligned if necessary, and then I typically do a lot of proactive measures with stretching, exercises, making sure they know how to correct their form so they're not injuring themselves. I know I've worked with a lot of pitchers, especially making sure that we are not injuring our wrists or elbows or utilizing the wrong muscles that can lead to epicondylitis and things like that. So if you have any questions, if you want to get your kiddo checked out in our office to make sure that they are starting their sports season well, give our office a call 309-689-6200 or visit our website freedompeoria.org. Have a great rest of your week.